I got a question for you. How effective are your instructional videos? These may be videos that you're putting inside of an e-learning course. These may be videos that you're just wrapping up and putting it inside of your LMS. Do you really know how effective they are? Are your learners watching the entire video? Are they only getting halfway? Are they even getting halfway? Those are different questions that you may have. Video itself takes a long time to produce. I mean, I have my own studio. I have all of my different lighting equipment. I know how much it takes to actually go into a video. But that begs the question is, how effective are these videos? Now, my videos themselves go onto YouTube. But when I'm creating courses with like inside a storyline, or I'm creating courses like custom courses, I want to know how effective those videos are. I want to know if the time that I spent to invest in the video and to create the video is actually being, achieved and it's actually being effective as well. Or if it's not, I want to know how to improve it. Where are people dropping off? Where are people getting lost or something like that? That's why the idea of video, and especially interactive video, has been really appealing to me and really something that I've tried to figure out. And I have a lot of videos that you can check out, how to create interactive videos and other things like that you can check out and dive more into that. But today, I'm actually going to show you how to get the most out of your tracking, especially when it comes to xAPI inside of your learning course. Now, I'm going to be using Storyline, but the same types of things apply to Lectora or to Captivate or to whatever tool that you're using. Really, what we're going to do is trigger different xAPI statements at different points of the video, and then use our learning record store to figure out the data. To go in and say, okay, are these actually being watched? At what point do they actually drop off? Things like that. So that's what I'm going to show you in today's video, is how to get the most, how to implement this inside of Storyline. Now, the first thing I want to talk about when we dive into Storyline is just inserting the video. So if I go into Storyline and I click on Insert, and then I go into Video here, I just brought in a video as an MP4 file. If you're working with YouTube, you're working with Vimeo or something like that, unfortunately it comes inside of Storyline as an iframe, which means that we can't get the most out of it. We can't trigger different things to happen at different points right inside of that video. So I actually think it's better to embed it inside of Storyline when you're wanting to do it this way. However, video can take up the largest amount of size in your course. I've seen people who create courses and they're like, it's too large to upload to my LMS. And typically the first thing I look for is, okay, do you have a video in there? Is that video by default 1 GB or more? How do you compress that? So there is a tool that I commonly use called Handbrake, and Handbrake is a free tool. You can download it for Mac, you can download it for PC, whatever you want, and you can compress and make your file sizes a lot smaller. I have a video on that as well if you wanted to check that out. All right, so now that we have our video inside of here, we have it along our timeline, we can go ahead and trigger different things to happen. Now, out of the box, Storyline doesn't do this, and so we're gonna have to add on some custom triggers. Storyline will track the amount or when they go to the page, it'll track when they leave the page, and the amount of time that they spent on that page. So we don't need to track that. Knowing what Storyline kind of tracks out of the box is really helpful, because now we can go ahead and implement that. And there's several different verbs that we're gonna have to implement. So you may be asking yourself, what verbs do I need to implement? At what point do I need to implement it? Well, that's where xAPI profiles come into play. I like to think of xAPI profiles as kind of recipes. Things that, okay, we have all these different verbs. We have verbs like played, we have verbs like paused, we have verbs like, progressed, other things like that. But where do I implement those verbs? How do I take the most or get the most out of it? How do I do it so the LRS makes the most, the learning record store makes the most sense of it as well? So that's where profiles come into play. And you can get to profiles by going to profiles.adl.gov. And here, if I go into the second tab, this is my profiles tab. There are a lot of different tabs out there. So if you're doing something like an audio profile, if you're doing something like flashcards, or you're working with a PDF, those are different recipes, different templates that you can follow Now, I don't feel, I may get some arguments on this, I don't feel like you have to implement everything, but this is just kind of, if you wanted to implement everything, this is what you can do. But I feel the most powerful thing is for you to make sense of it in your company and for you to establish this is how my company works with this profile. This is how my company does video. This is how my company does audio. So I think the biggest thing is to come up with a strategy of how you implement xAPI, which I have a template on that as well, which you can check out other videos that I have on my channel. But I'm going to go to the fourth one here, and so we're going to go to the video profile. Now, in the video profile, there is something called statement templates. Statement templates are different actions. So if you think, I think of like the profile as an entire bike, and different things that kind of function are these templates. So how the actual tire in the back works with the chain, that is kind of like a function inside of the overall bike. And so how we work with played, how we work with pause, those are different functions on this overall profile, basically. I'm going to go in and take a look at played. That's one of the first things that I can implement. So I could take that and say, okay, we have a video profile and we want to track played. So if I come into Storyline though, I can insert a trigger, and I can trigger this as soon as the video plays. Now, I could do this based on if the learner has just loaded the page, and if they just load the page, that means if the video is set to autoplay, we can just trigger it at that point. But if you have your video selected inside of Storyline, and you don't trigger the audio to play, and you do it when the user clicks, you may want to set up the played when the user clicks as well. So it depends on how you set that up. Most of the time, I just have my video playing automatically. So I'm just going to keep it at that. And let's add our first custom trigger. So I'm going to add a trigger here, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to go down to send xAPI statements. If I select this drop-down box, this is something weird with Storyline that I don't know why. They only have, you know, a few different verbs to choose from. If I look here, I'm not seeing a played verb. So what do? You're not stuck with the verbs that are here. So that's why I pull up something like the profile here, because I can go into that verb, or I use, and I'll leave all the links in the description below if you want to check those out. But I go to the xAPI profile. Now, Torrance Learning is an awesome company, and they created this tool to help you find these different verbs and action activities and so forth. So I'm going to actually go to my verb selection here, and I'm going to start searching for played. The reason why I have to go to this or to the profile page, I could do the same thing if I go to the profile page and I click on played, it's going to take me to this verb and it's going to give me that ID. So I could do it either way, but I like having the long list and the entire list inside of the profile or the action viewer, the concept viewer. And so that's where you can do it either or. If you're specifically working with just this profile, the profile website may be fine. But if you want to find other verbs, that's where I would go to, like the Torrance Learning concept viewer. So I wanted to point that out. All right, so if I come into here, you'll notice I need this ID. We need the actual verb, which is going to be played, right here, this concept name. But I really need the ID, so I need to use both of those. We're going to go ahead and click on, instead of the user clicks, we're going to have this happen when the timeline starts. So I'm going to go down to timeline starts here. So I have that in place. I'm going to just type in custom text, and we're going to say video. I'm just going to say video 1. Hit enter, and there we go. I want to change experience to played because I'm following this profile. I'm following this recipe, essentially. In order to change the verb to something else, all I have to do is click on this plus xAPI. This will pull up the JSON. xAPI is data, and it's formatted in a JSON format, which is a JavaScript object notation. I'm not going to have it memorized, honestly, but it's just basically JavaScript and the way that it's formatted, and it's data. It's giving me some data. And this is the data that's getting sent over to the Learning Record Store. So if I come in here, the two things I want to change are this line of, or that line of code, and also the experienced. I want to change that to played. Those are the two things that I have here. So I can just copy that, come into here, and then go ahead and just paste that right there. That's the first thing. Now I could copy it if I wanted to from the website and paste the verb itself here, but I can just type it here as well. So I'm going to say played. The learner is going to be captured from the LMS or from the Learning Record Store or wherever you capture it from. I have a lot of videos on that too. But now it's going to say that the learner played, and then it's going to say video 1, and it automatically generates an ID for me. I could change that ID if I want, but it does need to have some type of ID, and it's going to automatically generate it based on the course. Every activity that the learner does needs to have an ID. It could be the same ID across all different activities, or it could be like unique depending on how much detail or association you want to have happen within the course too. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now we have our first xAPI statement, and it's going to happen as soon as the video loads. What else can we track? Well, let's go back to the profile here. I'm going to go back into my statements. I can track when it's paused. I can track when it's completed. Well, I can just duplicate what I have here for completed. So let's go into this completed verb here, and I'm just going to duplicate the statement inside of storyline, and just instead of timeline starts, let's go ahead and do timeline ends. But I want to customize this xAPI statement, and you can even name your xAPI statements, because right now it just kind of gave it a name of custom xAPI statement 1 or 2. I'm going to go ahead and just say video complete, and then just click OK. Now I'm going to come back into here because I want to name this one too. I'm going to say video start. That way, and the biggest benefit to this is now in my triggers, I know exactly what this one is. It's the video start xAPI statement. It's the video complete xAPI statement. And I know it's an xAPI statement because that's what it's doing right here, send xAPI statement. Okay, so we have tracking when the video starts, but we need to change the IDs when the video completes. So I can just double click on the trigger and then go into this statement by clicking on that statement, and I can grab this completed ID, which is the IRI. Now, the IRI is like a unique identifier to learning record stores know exactly this is the type of data that's going to come, or this is the type of action that you're talking about. That's really what that does. All right, so I'm going to copy that and then come back in here, and I'm going to replace that right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and replace that and say completed. Now there's additional data we can add on if we wanted to. Duration, we can add on description, we can add on additional metadata. And I dive into that in my course. If you wanted to check that out, you can actually add on additional. We're just keeping it pretty basic for now. So it will send over Jeff Bat, in my case, completed video 1. And I can expand on that if I wanted to. All right, so now we're tracking when the video starts. We're tracking when the video completes. What else do we want to know? When you're strategizing about xAPI statements, it really comes down to you're kind of putting on a detective's hat and you're going, okay, what do I want to know about this interaction? And in this case, video, I want to know if they start. I want to know if they complete. I want to know if they've reached halfway. And if you're running reports and you're like, oh, I'm seeing a lot of start, but I'm not seeing as many completed, that means that a lot of learners aren't actually finishing the video. They're not getting to that point of the video. I could lock down the seek bar so you know that they can't skip ahead, or if they're just jumping to the next page, you know that that trigger never happened. But if I wanted to do like halfway or at certain points in my video, I could come into my video here, and if I wanted to figure out halfway, I could do that. But let's just do it right here, 5 seconds. And I'm going to create a cue point. Now I could do this based on time, but I like to do it on cue points because the cue points are easily movable. And you could actually, if you decide that I want to do it based on 10 seconds, instead of going into the trigger and changing it to 10, all I have to do is drag the cue point to 10. That's why I use cue points in this case. So I'm going to click on create a cue point. That creates some trigger or something on my timeline that now I can trigger when it gets to that cue point. So if I come into my trigger, I'm going to go ahead and still keep it as xAPI statements, and we're going to keep it as custom text. So reached halfway, we're going to do about reached, so halfway of video 1. I'm still describing it as video 1 here. We're going to switch reached or the experience to something else here in a second. But really what I'm focused on right now is the when section. I'm going to have this happen when the user reaches or the timeline reaches, and this is where I can select either a cue point or a point of time, sometime like 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, something like that. Like I mentioned, the benefit of the cue point is I can then drag the cue point and I don't have to update the time. So if I click OK, it's now going to, when the timeline reaches, it's going to send over that xAPI statement. But now I can click and move that anywhere I want, and it's going to update automatically. All right, so let's go back into the statements. So I'm going to double click on this statement because we didn't fully fill it out yet. So I'm going to go and click on this plus xAPI. I'm going to give it a name of reaches 5 seconds. Then I'm going to go in here and switch this out. Now, if I go back to the xAPI profile, and if I come into here, I'm looking for something that's kind of like reached, which I'm not really seeing here. A terminated, interacted, a seeked, if they like skipped or something like that. So if you're not seeing something that matches, this is where you can start doing some investigation, or you can pull up the concepts viewer and let me start searching for something like reached, which there is a reached verb here. So what I could do is just copy that ID, come into here, and then just paste this. This is why I love using this tool from Torrance Learning. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there, and then I'm going to switch this over to reached, and then click OK. Now I can have as many cue points as I want. So I could come in and add on a cue point for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 3 seconds. I wouldn't go too overboard, because if you're sending a lot of data, that means you also have to work with a lot of data inside of the Learning Record Store. So I would just, make sure that you're tracking what you want to know. That's that detective hat, and you're figuring out, this is what I want to know. And then you're going in, and that should tell you, if this is what you want to know, that should tell you where to put these xAPI statements. We have 3 xAPI statements. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit publish here. And we're going to publish to CMI5 because it's the easiest to be able to just track. If your learning management system can handle CMI5, you should be publishing to CMI5. It will give you the most amount of data, more than SCORM, and it will give you these xAPI statements. If your learning management system does not allow it, I would first of all tell them I want CMI5, because I've noticed a lot of learning management systems just wait until customers ask for it. So if they're not getting any type of demand, they're not going to do it. So if you're demanding, we want CMI5, it's going to give us more data. I don't know why they wait on it, but it's so worth it to be able to export it to CMI5 and get more data just out of the box with Storyline as well. You can still do this with SCORM. If your LMS isn't doing it yet, you can still report this over to an external learning record store. But just so we can get this data here and see what's happening, I'm going to just send it over to CMI5 and then click on publish. All right, so it's finished publishing. I can go ahead and zip this up. I want to zip it up, make sure that it's on my desktop here, and click save. Then I'm going to go into, and I'm going to actually test this in SCORM Cloud, so cloud.scorm.com. You can sign up for a free account here. I've been using this for years on the free version, and it's a lot that I can do and kind of test, especially with xAPI, but also with SCORM as well. But if I come into SCORM Cloud and upload here, I'm going to click on Browse and then upload my zipped file. I'm going to click on import course, and depending on the size of your video, it may take a while. So that's why I say the first thing you need to do is compress your video, and then this will take a lot quicker. And you can compress your video to pretty small file sizes without losing a lot of quality. So it's not like you're going to it's not going to destroy your video. Now you can, but you can still compress it without losing a lot of quality there. So I just want you to keep that in mind. All right, so it's now uploaded. So let's go ahead and click on launch. I'm going to click on launch course here, expand this out a little bit, and click on play. Now I'm going to mute this, just a simple scenario that I have. We're going to make sure that it gets to the 5 seconds here. Now I'm going to skip forward. You can disable this inside of Storyline. If you don't know how to disable this, it's in the player settings. But I'm going to skip forward because I don't want to watch the entire thing here. And then that's it. Now I don't have any other pages here. Probably should have gotten rid of the next button, but I'm going to go ahead and click close. And now this is where the data comes into play. If the data is here, I can start to build reports inside of a learning record store. So if I click on view registration statement history, notice how it sends over all of the default xAPI statements that Storyline does. That's just Storyline, but it also sends over the custom ones that I have created. So it will send over that I experienced it, but right here, this is my custom one. So Jeff Bat played video 1. Jeff Bats, or my full name, reached video 1. Now this is interesting because it does have played, but it has played a couple times and it has reached a couple times as well. I'm not sure why. I'd have to investigate that. But inside of a learning record store, you can actually filter it out so you only see one verb as well. So it's not too much of a concern. But I have a completed video 1 right here as well. So that allows me to start building things inside of my learning record store. If I go into an external learning record store like Veracity, for example, so if I go into my analytics here, this is where you can start to build like custom reports. So if you have something like Veracity, you have something like Watershed, a learning pool, whatever tool that you may be using, the real power of the learning record store is you can start to pull out just the important statements that you want to use. So you want to know video 1, you want to know that they've played, you want to know that they've reached, you want to know that they've completed. And you could filter that out, and then you can remove any duplicates like we saw inside of SCORM Cloud. And then you could create these reports that are meaningful and shareable as well. You can get those out to your stakeholders. So there's a lot of potential here, and the profile is already set up so I can follow and implement the profile. If it doesn't quite fit my needs, I can expand upon it and add additional things. I can come up with my own xAPI strategy. So much potential here just for video, and that's just video. You can do this with xAPI. You can do it based on just like if I clicked on a tab, if I interacted with a game and other things like that. So much potential here. And I wanted to show you this inside of Storyline. If you're new to Storyline, you can head on over to my website, learningdojo.ninja. You can check out all of my previous blog posts. You can also check out full courses in Storyline, as well as full courses in xAPI. And I show you what xAPI is. I talk about the different things that you can do with xAPI, how to do it inside of Storyline, how to do it inside of Captivate, other things like that. You can check that out all in my course here. And if you like this video, head on over to my YouTube channel, click that like button and subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. That really helps my channel, helps with the algorithm, helps me continue to produce these videos for you so you can get the most out of your learning and development and hopefully improve what you're doing as well. And comment down below, what else do you want to see? What's other xAPI example do you want me to work with inside of Storyline or inside of a custom tool as well, or HTML? So it's so flexible that you can go in and pretty much implement xAPI into any tool that you may be working with. But that's all I have for today. So thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.